Hello and welcome to my non-spoiler review of Thunderbolts. And be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of my Thunderbolts coverage, from spoilers to box office and more. It is fun still when these, well, no matter what happens with these movies, it's fun when they come out. They're certainly events, right? So, I really enjoyed this movie. I liked it quite a bit. Although, even as someone who really enjoyed the movie, I must admit that it desperately needs a big action sequence in the third act. I thought we were getting one. I thought it was building to a big action sequence, and it didn't have one. Is it the best MCU movie since Endgame? I'm seeing a couple people throw that around. I wouldn't go that far. It's no Deadpool and Wolverine, although for some reason some of you don't like Deadpool and Wolverine. To me, Deadpool and Wolverine was an experience. Oh, I loved it. This one, I enjoyed it. I would put it on par with Shang-Chi. And while technically Thunderbolts is a team movie, it feels more like Black Widow 2 to me. But I mean that in the nicest way possible, in the most positive way possible. And I want to make it clear that this movie is way better than the first Black Widow movie. This is actually a good Black Widow movie. And it's kind of sad that they didn't feel they could call it Black Widow 2 or Black Widow and the Thunderbolts. That would have been kind of cool. I just want it to do well at this point. I feel really bad about what's happened to women in the genre space. It's a very funny movie. Switching gears to more positive. It's a very funny movie. And when it does have action sequences, I think they're very well done. The movie is also extremely cinematic. It just looks really good, especially on a premium screen. I mean, the camera just loves Florence Pugh and Sebastian Stan. They both get a lot of close-ups in this movie, and I saw it on a giant IMAX, and they both looked like movie stars. Oh, a lot of times I was like, darn, you look good. I mean, it was great. It also has 2 post-credit scenes. Make sure you stick around for the first one's just like a chuckle, ha ha ha. The second one, you're not going to want to miss that one. It's almost one of the main reasons to see the movie. And it's kind of weird because that post-credit scene at the very end of the film really should have been the third act of the entire movie. But instead they condensed it to under 5 minutes. Just perfect, unfortunately, for leaking on the internet, I fear. If instead of that being the final post-credit scene, if that had been the third act, if they'd extended it and made it the third act of this movie, this would be an Avengers-level film. But they didn't. On that note, the best way to describe Thunderbolts, and again, I liked the movie. I liked it quite a bit. But if you love something, set it free with the truth. It's so frustrating. I think that makes the movie even more frustrating because you're like, oh, you are so close to greatness. If only someone had given you better notes while you still could do something about it. But anyway, it's the same problem we see all the time these days with Marvel, where it's more focusing on what's next, its promises for the future, rather than the movie or show you're watching at the moment. Right? I mean, you all know what I'm talking about because they do it all the time these days. And I'm sad to see that they've done it yet again. Thunderbolt sets up some really important developments for the MCU that you're either going to enjoy at a later date, or, and I fear it's this latter, that they're going to have to maybe just gloss over them and shortchange them and not give them the time that they deserve. I mean, these are some really cool developments, and you're like, but you don't have time to do them. And they're like, whatever, we checked that box. And you're like, no, not only were you so close to doing it, but it looks good, it has potential. And they're like, sorry, Doomsday's next. And you're like, uh-oh. I mean, so Thunderbolts largely exists to get you excited about what's coming up next in the MCU, rather than, again, the movie that you're going to be watching. But even still, I think it's worth seeing in theaters. I really do. Although I understand that some of you might say, pass. So how are you going to decide which camp that you're in? Well, I think it's time for a good old-fashioned pros and cons list to help you decide. And let's start with the pros. Yelena Belova. If you're not a fan of Florence Pugh's Black Widow, then you probably shouldn't see this movie. But how are you not a fan of Yelena? Maybe this movie will convince you. Maybe go see it and become a fan of Yelena Belova. I dare you to see this movie and not be a fan of Yelena Belova by the end of the film. But if you were like, you'll never do it to me, well, then maybe you shouldn't see this film because it's impossible not to love her by the end of it. All right, so not only is she the team leader, but she is the heart and soul of this film. It is almost entirely from her perspective, not only emotionally, but in terms of how the story progresses. I tweeted out in my first reaction, this was Black Widow 2, and some of you were like, don't saddle this movie with that. And I'm like, that's sad that you think that's such a negative. But I mean, when you see the movie, you'll be like, oh my God, I'm watching Black Widow 2. I found it amazing. And I thought Florence Pugh was more than up to the task of headlining a superhero movie. You want to know why she held Kevin Feige's hand like that on the red carpet? Because he gave her this movie. And it's not just, she's not only good because of what she herself brings to the role, from her personality to her fierce sense of style. Yelena, you look so good. But also because the role itself is incredible. You know who's an executive producer on this movie? Miss Scarlett Johansson. And speaking of sad, it's very sad that Natasha never got her due. For Marvel, her movie was weak. And Scarlett Johansson produced that one too. That movie was bad. And then also a lot of fans always used to make fun of her, which really sucked. And despite her having to represent women almost entirely by herself in the very early days of the MCU. I've told you that story of when I saw, Civil War. And I was at an early screening, and this woman in front of me was so into all of Scarlett Johansson's action sequences. She was actually punching the air. She's like, yeah, get her. And it made me I felt so nice about that. I thought that was really wonderful. And I will always think of that when I think of Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow. And as we talk more and more about women supporting women, it's actually beautiful that Scarlett Johansson is passing the baton like this to Florence Pugh. Not only making her the new Black Widow, but creating through this film a better role for this Black Widow than we've ever seen before. It's amazing. Natasha Romanoff, the character, and Scarlett Johansson, the actress, walked so that Yelena Belova, Florence Pugh could run. And it's really cool. I hope so. I hope she doesn't run straight into a wall. But we'll see what happens, with how the film is received, both in terms of critics, fans, fan chatter, and box office. But there are just a lot of similarities between the two Black Widows and the role they fill on a superhero team. And we'll discuss those in the spoiler review because I don't want to give them away. However, I will say here that you definitely feel the ghost of Natasha, intentionally so, I think, over the course of this film. But yes, while Yelena is the lead of the film, she still is on a team. And I was surprised at how good the team is. I thought it was a lame team, although they looked cool in this one poster. But I was like, I don't know about this team. Now that I've seen the movie, I love this team. I think they're great. And that might be because, as many of you know, I'm partial to anti-heroes. My favorite Marvel Disney Plus shows are Loki and Agatha. I love me an anti-hero. So it should have occurred to me that an entire team of anti-heroes would be perfect for me. I guess because they just seem kind of lame in the poster and in the ad campaign. And in my defense, in their previous incarnations in the MCU. I think for most of these characters, nobody was like, boy, I can't wait to see them again. But this movie did right by them. They were great. And the few times that this team does kick into action, I gotta say, I did feel the old school Marvel magic. I did. It's not like radiating off of this movie, as I've seen some other people say, but it's there. Their suits look cool. Their hair is amazing. Really, their hair looks so good. I can't say everything until the spoiler review. But anyway, and their moves, super sharp. They got the moves as well. Today, sometimes superheroics come across as lame because they've just been done so much at this point. But I think Thunderbolts makes them feel cool again. It really does. I was like, this is a cool team. I also enjoyed the team banter. Some people are like, why do Marvel movies have to always be comedic? I like it. Sometimes people feel that this kind of stuff is lame, but I thought the banter here was perfection. I was like, you guys are so funny. I'm having such a good time hanging out with you. Pugh has already proven to be fantastic with deadpan delivery, and she is here once again. And we all know how lovable David Harbour is. I just love him. But I was surprised at how much Wyatt Russell adds to this team. I know! Where did this come from? I made fun of him when they revealed his chair in Avengers Doomsday. I was like, why are you giving that guy a spot? But now, I can't imagine this team without him. So yeah, I think this movie's pretty darn funny. And of course, credit for that not only belongs to the actors delivering the lines so well, but the script, giving them these lines. It doesn't feel improvised. I think these jokes were written. So who wrote the script? Who deserves the credit? I gotta tell you, I'm not totally sure. Let's discuss. So Black Widow screenwriter, I'm telling you, it's Black Widow 2, baby. Eric Pearson has the main credit for story and co-writer, along with the Bear writer Joanna Callow. And she's written for some pretty funny shows, so she might have contributed some of the humor as well. But I think that most of the credit for this movie being so well written belongs to Beef creator and showrunner Lee Sung-jin, who did rewrites on this movie. And I'm surprised that the Writers Guild didn't give him any credit. The Writers Guild decides who actually gets credit on a film. They take a look at what was contributed. Maybe the deal was he didn't get credit. I mean, they certainly reported that he was working on the movie a whole lot. I made myself snood. It's so funny. But anyway, Lee Sung-jin, I think clearly fixed this movie up considerably. If you liked Beef on Netflix, I don't know how many people watched Beef. I watched it. I thought it was phenomenal. You will enjoy Thunderbolts, as Beef director Jake Schreier is at the helm here. And a lot of Thunderbolts feels like the big sequence towards the end at Maria Bello's compound. Like, it feels almost exactly like that. And that was a good sequence. Might be a little TV. I don't know about this is the pros list, but I don't know about for both of their big summer movies having streaming directors do it. Although some like Andor is directed at a movie level. But I wouldn't say that these two gentlemen have ever directed anything that I felt looked like a movie, as good as it might have been. But you know what? This almost, to some way, they could be cutting their teeth. I believe, particularly for Jake Schreier, that his second movie will be probably incredible now that he's learned the ropes. So, I mean, do we even have time for Thunderbolts 2? I mean, I would like them to make it, but again, they kind of don't have the space for it anymore, which is ridiculously frustrating considering how good the team turned out. All right, so now while the writing here is very funny and gives fantastic character depth to Yelena, it also creates a fantastic villain in Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. No longer working on the sidelines, she finally steps forward, and I think she's definitely building on her experience with Veep. She's very much an evil Selena Meyer. And I love Selena Meyer, so no complaints here. Here, Val has real depth and is a genuine threat. And unlike a lot of superhero villains, particularly in the MCU, she's actually effective. She is a fantastic foil for Yelena. I love this. Get this. They're both ruthless, damaged, and very, very human. Both of Pugh's and Louis Dreyfus's willingness to show vulnerability for these strong women, and you see it just fleeting, but it's there, I think is just really exciting. The way both of these characters have leveled up since that end credit scene at the end of Black Widow, thank you, is amazing. Speaking of powerful ladies, I've also got to give a shout out to Ghost, who, on a team of superheroes who, as Yelena points out, mostly punch and shoot, her special abilities add a really important sparkle that you want to see in comic book movie action sequences. The way her powers are used here, and in some cases inhibited, is all very interesting. And I just never get tired, certainly while watching this movie, of seeing her shimmer. I was like, and with the sound that goes with it, I was like, that's really cool. Although I don't know what they're gonna do with Kitty Pryde after this, because it's basically Kitty Pryde. Although Kitty Pryde doesn't make that cool sound, it was neat. But if you want real razzle-dazzle, well, I give you Sentry. Sentry has one scene in this movie. It's ridiculous that he has one scene, particularly once you see that one scene, because it's incredible. It is worth the price of admission alone, or at least it would be if not for today's social media, where I predict this sequence will be up online on social media within an hour of the film playing overseas. And that's a real shame that that happens. But it's an incredible sequence. See it on a big screen. It's really cool. He's comics accurate, incredibly powerful, extremely well rendered VFX-wise, and the movie is also very clever in how his powers are utilized as well. Of course, there's also a void, but we can't talk about that too much here because this isn't a spoiler review. But I will say, as many have been pointing out, that this movie deals extensively with mental health. And while they might be superheroes, Yelena and Bob's characters specifically, I believe, make this conversation extremely appealing and accessible to Gen Z, who, of course, are very important to not only this movie's success, but any blockbuster's success. You want that demographic. I think these conversations feel extremely organic here and honest and earned instead of a lecture from Hollywood. And that's very impressive to see coming from a big studio blockbuster. And I think it's this part of the movie that gives it that A24 quality. All right, so what are the cons? There aren't actually a lot of cons. So why would you be on the fence as to whether or not to see this movie, or why might you not enjoy it? Well, they're few, but they're mighty. They're big ones, and I think they could potentially really hurt this movie. I was able to get over them, even though I can recognize them, but I don't know if everyone else will. As I said in a recent live stream, after I saw this movie, I asked a couple of people around me what they thought of it, just to kind of get a feel for the room, and both people I asked, they were guys, said, "Nah," and that surprised me. So I was like, why would someone possibly have that reaction? Well, for all the talk about mental health, as good as that talk is, those conversations often take the place of what should be action sequences in the film. They talk it out instead of fight it out. I mean, it's feelings over fighting, and even if it's extremely, even if those feelings are extremely well done, people, especially fans, come to a comic book movie like this for the action. And that's also extremely important when it comes to repeat business. People see these movies multiple times for the action sequences. Just ask Steven Soderbergh with that story he has when he was at the airport and he witnessed someone watching one of these movies just fast forwarding from action sequence to action sequence. I mean, again, there are a couple of action sequences here, but that's, I think, one of the real things the Russo brothers really excelled at and don't get enough credit for. I actually want to see it again, but that's because I like the characters so much. And again, there are some action sequences, and I would like to see them again. Although, as I said at the beginning of the review, the movie desperately needs that big action sequence in the third act, especially because all the smaller action sequences beforehand feel like they're building towards a big action sequence. So to never get that is weird. It's a weird feeling. The movie, I think, to some ways, therefore feels a little incomplete. To just get a taste of Sentry, an amazing taste, so yummy, he's delicious. And then not to get to see him again, to never put him in the field, really? Again, that's an odd choice and makes the movie feel unsatisfying. But I think I know why they made that choice. Because I think Sentry is too powerful, and they couldn't have a big third act action sequence because it would be over like that. They had to find a different way to take him down that didn't involve fighting, because you can't beat Sentry. In fact, I can't think of anyone in the MCU, or even a group of superpowered individuals in the MCU, who could take him down, or even slow him down. That's how powerful he is. Is he overpowered? Well, I think that's something we'll probably be discussing over the next couple of weeks. So the movie and the MCU has written itself into a bit of a corner by making a character that's potentially overpowered. Because what are they going to do with Bob now? I'd say he might disappear like Gaia, but then he's credited for Avengers Doomsday. So, what's he going to do there? I don't know how Dr. Doom could beat him, to be honest with you. Maybe he could use magic or something. I was talking to someone about this, and it was well, maybe Sentry's so powerful, and they built him up as so super powerful that Robert Downey Jr. will be like, step aside, I'll take care of this guy to show you just how powerful Doom is. And obviously that would work, but again, it would be such a waste of Sentry, who is a really cool character. So I'm torn. He is overpowered, but I like him so much. Can we keep him, please? Please, can we keep him? I like Louis Pullman in the role, and to his credit, he does not seem like a last-minute replacement for Steven Yeun, even though that's exactly what he is. While I watched the movie, I did think about how Steven Yeun would be in this role, and I think that he would have played it totally different, and I do wonder what that would be. I don't even know if Steven Yeun would have worked. I think it would have maybe made this seem too much like Beef, which of course co-starred Steven Yeun. But what Pullman has going for him is that when he's in the suit, all made up, he feels a lot like comic book Sentry. You're like, oh, there he is. Wow, that's pretty neat. Also, Pullman is very good at doing the superhero moves. VFX can't do it all. The actor has to sell it. And I think he really helped sell Sentry's, incredible powers. He's very good at holding his hand up. It's a skill. All the Xaviers have to be good at this, right? Pullman was good at holding his hand up. I was like, hey, that's pretty good. You're good at that. The one downside, though, and for me this is a pretty big downside, is that Pullman, especially as Sentry, looks, sounds, and overall acts so much like Anthony Starr's Homelander from The Boys. In fact, during that one incredible Sentry sequence, I was like, oh, imagine if The Boys had a movie budget. Oh, the fun that we could have. Now, Sentry predates Homelander in the comics. He certainly predates Anthony Starr's version. But the way it's done here, it comes off as Marvel's Homelander. Like Kevin Feige watches The Boys and said, ooh, that's great. I want one. And to his credit, he kind of got one. Even the way Sentry here handles himself and his POV, his world, you'll see. He's very Homelander coded. And I have mixed feelings about that because I love Homelander. So I like more of Homelander, especially at a movie level. But then also I'm like, don't copy Homelander. Respect Anthony Starr's creative accomplishment. All right, so then, speaking of cool male characters in the movie, I'm very sorry to report that there's not a lot of Winter Soldier in this film. I know. What? I mean, he's in the movie. He's in the movie. You might be like, Grace, he's right there on the poster. I've seen him in the trailers. Well, they know that Bucky is a big sell, and therefore they put most of his scenes in the trailers. You've seen his action sequences. This isn't a two-hander like Falcon and Winter Soldier, where he and Yelena are a team. No. They barely talk to one another, in fact. I mean, look, Sebastian Stan has certainly proven himself to be a fantastic, now award-winning actor. And I feel that Marvel, as a result, is letting him act a little bit more. He has more acting sequences than he does action sequences. But Bucky has been an action highlight in most of the movies, if not almost all of the movies that he's appeared in. And to have him not have at least one new signature action sequence in this movie is insane. You're like, where's the cool Bucky action sequence? Like, he was so cool in Winter Soldier. And again, later on, in Civil War, I mean, he had great sequences. And it's so bizarre that he doesn't have one here. You know what's even more bizarre? He's Captain America's bestie, maybe friend with benefits, depending on what camp you're in. And many people feel he should be the new Captain America. And that he can barely make a dent in Sentry. It was a little embarrassing. And I wouldn't have embarrassed Bucky like that. Just saying, protect your characters, Disney. I mean, Disney does this again and again and again, where they let their characters down. And the Winter Soldier should have lasted a little bit longer. And then, as I also said at the beginning of this review, the biggest con for Thunderbolts is that it doesn't feel like a main event. It sets up characters and developments for later in Marvel movies and maybe shows. And while, again, it has one heck of a final post-credit scene, I've always said to you, how a movie ends is the most important. And this movie ends, if you remember to stick around through the credits, it ends extremely well. This is one of the best it's one of the best and worst post-credit scenes that Marvel has ever had. Because it's more than just a tease. It almost feels like this is it. Like they don't have time to do this, but they realized that it felt weird that they didn't. Like they watched the movie and they were like, whoa. We clearly need to go here, but we don't have time to because we're hurtling towards Robert Downey Jr.'s doom. What are we going to do? And so they have this really cool, they condensed what really should have been either the third act of this movie or really Thunderbolts 2 into an under 5-minute post-credit sequence and tacked it onto this movie to do what they always do, where you're like, meh, and then they get you at the last minute with this promise for the future, and that's how they've been keeping people hooked. But it's waning. It's not, and I think in that regard, that's going to cause some people to not like the movie as much, or say maybe you can wait to watch it until it's on digital or streaming. And also, it makes it easier for these things to leak because they're so compact and small chunks. It's harder to leak an entire movie than it is just a short sequence. And I feel bad that they did that because I really would have liked to have seen that third act or second film. But the movie's very funny and well written overall. I really came to care about all of these characters. I was engaged. I oohed. I awed. I clapped. I did. I really did. My audience did as well. When there's action, it is thrilling and has that old school MCU magic. The Thunderbolts feel like a team, a great fun team. And the MCU has a really cool villain in Val. And as female-led superhero stories falter at the box office and on streaming, it was really great to see Yelena Belova and Val get to really shine here and be taken care of by Kevin Feige. It was so great to see. And now we wait to see if Black Widow 2, in disguise as Thunderbolts, can do well at the box office, is well received by fans. Let's see how it works out. All right, so that's my non-spoiler review of Thunderbolts hitting theaters later this week. And again, be sure to subscribe so you can stay tuned for all of my spoiler coverage as well as discussion of what happens at the box office. Share those thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.